Welcome, viewers, to the final call. And today I'm going to be doing a talk for women. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the women who are mothers. And mothers make up a very big category. It doesn't mean that you have to have your own baby. It doesn't mean that you have to give birth. It just means that you play the role of a mother. You may be an adopted mother. You may be mother to step children. You may be a surrogate mother. And you may be a natural mother. And even if you haven't got children, this message is also for women. I've spent the last 4 weeks with the Lord locked in my bedroom. And it was it was Monday, the 20, okay, what day is it today? Today's the 24th. Yeah. So it was Monday the 20th that Lord reminded me of this message. And I said, oh my God, I forgot. So I'm in the studio now and I'm going to give this message that the Lord has really impressed upon my spirit for women. Now it goes very much in line with the message that we've been talking about the spirituality versus carnality. It falls in line with that. And that's, I think, why the Lord reminded me quickly to put it in before we change the topic. I also want to say thank you to my daughter, Melissa, for my beautiful Mother's Day present. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. And I want to, first of all, want you all to understand that as women, we face a lot of things in this world. A lot of medical, emotional, physical, financial strains that affect us on every level. So today I want to talk to you about how God expects a woman to be in relation to her body and the things that she will have to do to safeguard her own health. Now, we are very, very different from men in every way possible because of only one thing, the womb and the fact that we have breasts. We carry life. They help us to produce that life, but we carry the life. And that makes us completely different in that dynamic from men. And today I want to read to you something that the Lord cares about women. And then I'm going to go into the topic that God has highlighted me to say to you. So I'm going to read it from Luke 13 and from verse 11. So Luke 13, verse 11. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed down and could in no wise lift up herself. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them therefore come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. The Lord then answered and said, Thou hypocrite, doth not each one of you on the Sabbath day loose thy ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound low these 18 years, be loosed from the bonds on the Sabbath day? And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Amen. So today I'm going to be explaining some of the things that happen to a woman via the bowel, and unlock some of the things that maybe you have not quite understood as how we get some of the diseases that we get as women. So today I'm going to be talking about cervical cancer. I'm going to be talking about breast cancer. I'm going to be talking about ovarian cysts and all those things that we get because of the bowel. Now, in our body, we have something called the tonsils. They're inside the mouth, and they're two little round little lobes hanging at the back of the throat, and they go slightly round to the side. Now, these are lymphatic vessels and lymphatic tissues. And the reason why they are there is the tonsils are one of the first frontline defense for the mouth, for the body. See, everything enters the body through the mouth. You understand? And this is by injection. So your mouth will open, and whatever you eat will come through your mouth. Whether you're smoking, whether you're drinking, whatever you're doing, once it enters the mouth, it will have to pass the tonsils. So God made the tonsils to be the eyes to the body. So they catch at the back of your throat, the little things swinging around there at the back. They catch dust, they catch fungi, they catch bacteria, stick to them, and then they are absorbed, and then they are passed out of the body via the bowel. So if your tonsils become inflamed, now how would they become inflamed? Now, remember we were talking about mucus and what mucus does inside the body. And we were saying that meat and certain refined grains and dairy and certain foods will make mucus in the body. And when this mucus enters the body, the colon and the stomach and everything will actually produce mucus to stop any irritation from these foods affecting it. Now, this mucus is then picked up and taken in the blood, and via the blood, it enters into the lymph system. Now, when it gets in the lymph system, the mucus thickens the lymph that is inside the lymph system, and the lymph becomes hard. Now, the problem with the lymph system is that lymph system holds the white blood cells. That's where the white blood cells live. They're in the lymph system. So when the parasites and when the fungi and everything and the bacterium is moving through the lymph system, it travels through vessels and lymph nodes through the body. And the problem with the lymph system is that the lymph system, when bacteria gets in it, and when fungi and when cancer cells get in the lymph system or created in the lymph system, via the lymph system, they can go to every single part of the body, which is the danger of having a problem with your lymphatic system. Now, one of the main things of having a natural diet, the raw, not even the raw, but the genesis of the diet of Genesis 11, is that it allows the lymph to remain at the correct consistency. Because remember, the lymph goes through, it picks up the waste, it brings in nice clean cells and everything into the body, and then it takes out the waste with it. Now, it takes out the poison from the cells. So it helps to clean the cells, and at the same time, it removes all the waste from the cells, and via osmosis, it goes back through the walls of the lymph system and into the blood and then out the body. So if your lymph is too thick, it can't pass through the holes of the lymph vessels to get back into the blood, to then come through the liver and go out of the body via the bowel. So it becomes stuck. Do you understand me? It becomes stuck. Now, we are sometimes wondering how God made the body. Now, the lymph system has a few friends. It has the breast, it has the vagina, it has the appendix, and these work with the lymph system. Now, you will say, how does it work with the lymph system? Now, inside your body, there are no eyes. There's no eyes in any organ to see. The eyes are in your head. But the lymph system acts like the eyes of the body. Because why? That is a security guard of your body. That is where all the white blood cells are kept. And when anything happens to the body, it is the lymph system, the immune system, the lymphatic system that energizes itself. Now, we have at the back of us, we have two small glands called the adrenal glands at the top of the kidney. Two small almond-shaped glands at the back on top of your kidney, and these work with the immune system. They work with the lymphatic system to defend the body. So if your adrenal system is down, that means the endocrine system. So if the endocrine system is down, then your lymph system is compromised, very, very badly compromised. So you have to, at all costs, protect your lymphatic system. Now, the lymphatic system hasn't got a pump like the heart. So if the lymph is not moving, the only way it can move is by exercise. That is why exercise is very important for lymphatic drainage. Like, so if you see that you have a lot of cellulite and, swelling on the body, you've got to get moving. So either you do massaging or you exercise, but you've got to keep your lymphatic liquid at the right level. Now, so if that lymph becomes thickened and you can't move it, it becomes stiff. It stiffens the whole body. It stiffens the joints. It stiffens the tissue. It stiffens the body in general. So you begin to feel very heavy, very, very heavy and tired. Now, if your tonsils are under attack, the attack does not happen from your mouth. The attack happens from your bowels. Now, we were talking last week or the week before last about constipation and why constipation is dangerous. Now, the reason why constipation is very, very dangerous in a woman, it's probably even more dangerous in a woman than it is in a man. Because men don't have any womb. We have a womb. Now, the appendix is inside the intestines. It's at the bottom of the large intestines, at the very beginning of large intestines. So you have your mouth and it comes down to your stomach. Then it goes from your stomach and it becomes your intestines. And then it goes to your large intestines. So at the beginning of your large intestines is that appendix. It's a small little 3.5 inch little tube, so which is open at one end and then locked at the other. So it has a very, very small open. It's about maybe like 7 millimeters wide, very tiny. But inside it has lymphatic vessels. So its actual purpose is to tell the body that the colon is choked. So when the colon is dirty, very, very dirty, and bacteria has built up inside the colon, it overspills into the appendix. And sometimes, if there's stool lodged, it can block the entrance of the appendix and cause the appendix to become swollen. Now, when the appendix becomes sick, it will tell the tonsils, hey, you people upstairs, fix up because I'm getting sick down. Now, what we should actually do when that happens is now go and clean the bowel out. Do high enemas, clean the bowel, change your diet, flush your body with herbs, and empty the bowel so that the appendix will calm down. Most times the doctors remove the appendix, but that is not the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is to clean the bowel out so the constipation is gone. So when you see that your tonsils are infected. Now, how you will know your tonsils are infected, that your throat will become very sore and the tonsil will become very red. And sometimes if they're really, really sick, they'll get coated in candida or thrush. And then you will see tiny, tiny little white balls. You can cough them up. They smell awful, really, really horrible. All right. And they're made up of calcium particles, food particles, and debris. And so they get lodged in the folds of the tonsils and they stay there. So when your tonsils become sick, you will see little white spots all over your tonsils. And that is an indication that your appendix is also sick. Now, the problem with constipation, in our case as women, is that inside, if you put your hand inside the intimate area of the vagina, you'll be touching the back of the rectum. So if there is stool stuck there by constipation, and constipation continues to become your problem day in, day out, year after year, what happens is, by us, and almost like an osmosis effect, because the vagina also has lymphatic tissue and lymphatic vessels and nodes. So via the lymph system, the waste travels, the poison from the bowel and from the stool passes through the vaginal wall and comes into the vagina area. Now, if this continues, what will happen is that you begin to have abnormal cells being produced. Because what happens when poison and toxins get into a cell, when the cell starts to try to, reproduce itself or replicate itself, if the environment is not clean, then the cells, instead of replicating identically, they mutate and replicate as abnormal cells. And this is the start of problems. So if you see that you go for a smear test and they tell you that you have abnormal cells in your smear, in the vaginal area, from your smear in the vaginal area, the first port of call is to do a cleansing on your colon, to remove every waste that is there. Because if those cells do not get cleaned out, that can be the start point of cancer. Now, because the cervix is at the top of the vagina, also having lymphatic vessels. Now, the Lord is very smart. He's very, very skilled. He did not give the womb lymphatic vessels on the inside. He made sure that from the womb and from the bowel, there can be no pollution coming to the womb via the colon. He was very smart the way the Lord did it. But there can be an osmosis, there can be a crossover via the vagina, but not via the womb. Otherwise, life would never be able to happen. And so the cervix at the top of the vagina has also got lymphatic vessels and lymphatic nodes. And because of this, the vagina can pass those abnormal cells to the cervix. And if they are not treated, it can become cervical cancer. Now, in the body, we as women, we have breasts. We have something that is an extension of our body. So our body ends here on a man, but our breasts are a continuation of our body. So they are hanging on to us like an impediment. And the breasts are, a lot of lymphatic vessels are in the breast, lots of lymph nodes are in the breast, and lots of lymph nodes and vessels are under our armpits. So the problem with women is that if you have constipation and the lymph has nowhere to go, it dumps the excess lymph inside the breast. So as a woman, if you see your breast beginning to grow, do not ignore it. It means that the lymph, your bowel is congested and the lymph is dumping mucus and lymph inside your breast. Now, if this begins to happen and the breast, the colon is not cleaned out and the constipation is not relieved, then what happens is the lymph inside the breast begins to thicken and harden. And what happens is when it begins to thicken and harden, it then makes little cluster cells, because now the same thing will happen again. The cells will begin to mutate. So instead of replicating normally, they replicate abnormally and begin to produce little abnormal cells. Now, when these abnormal cells begin to reproduce, they cluster. They begin to get into a cluster. And when they get into a cluster, then you'll get a lump inside the breast, a cluster cell of lumps. Now, this is what we call a cyst in the breast.